Hey furry friends, I'm back with another video. So, I've been asked quite a few times how to go about making a fursona, and for those of us more seasoned furries who have been in the fandom for a few years, that might sound like a silly question at first. What, you may be thinking? What do you mean, how do you make a fursona? It's so simple. But for you new or young furries, this is a very real question that you might have. And I know there's plenty of videos covering the topic, but I figured I'd throw one in the mix too. And while this isn't a step-by-step process video on how to make a fursona, I do have some tips, tricks, and things to consider that I'd like to share. In concept, a fursona is indeed simple. I mean, simply put, a fursona is a furry character that represents you within the furry fandom. They might be a literal representation of you, like my fursona is for me, or more realistically, they might be a bit dramatized. Some people use their fursona as a mascot whose personality might not be a perfect reflection of themselves, but their design is associated with them in their work. Other times, a fursona is a version of yourself that you want to be, or highlights specific characteristics. Sometimes people have multiple fursonas for this purpose, to represent different aspects of themselves. Going too deep into specifics to strictly define what a fursona is difficult, because really, what a fursona truly is a little bit different for everyone, and usually it's a blend of things. Perhaps the first thing to do when designing a fursona has nothing to do with the design itself. Really, it's about how are you going to make your fursona come to be? Are you going to write out their characteristics and write out how their design will be? Are you going to draw them yourself? Are you going to use one of the many free bases that you can find to make a reference sheet? Or are you even going to commission an artist to make a reference sheet? Or are you going to commission an artist to make the fursona for you? Once you figure out how your fursona will actually come to be, then you can really move on to the designing. So the first step when it comes to designing is to consider what species you want. Now, the species can be anything from a real species to an original species like Protogen and Dutch angel dragons, or maybe some sort of hybrid of species. As you can see, my fursona is a rabbit, but they're also a shapeshifter, so they can be any species I want. I chose this because different species can have different vibes to them, and the species that I draw my fursona in can reflect how I feel at the moment, which leads me into my next piece of advice. Most people pick their favorite animal, and you can too, but I personally recommend picking an animal that you feel fits your fursona's personality. My fursona's main species is a rabbit, because I feel a rabbit represents my upbeat and bubbly nature. Do you too feel like a cute fluffy rabbit? Maybe you want to be a cool hyena or a possum. Do you feel sly like a fox or happy go lucky like a dog? Personality can really give you an idea of what species you want to be. You might also be leaning towards something like a wolf or a fox or one of the other more common species, and maybe you're second guessing yourself because you've heard a lot of flack for the more basic species. No need to worry, I say. I want to make it really clear that people who complain about the more basic species should have no say in what you make your fursona into. What's most important about your fursona is that you connect with them, not anyone else. Once you've got your species down, I'd recommend figuring out your fursona's features before tackling colors or markings. Do they have a short tail or a long tail? Big ears? Small ears? What about hair? Do they have any? Is it just a tuft or a full-blown hairdo? This is part of what can really set your fursona apart and really make them reflect yourself. Referencing my own fursona, you can see that there's a few traits that other rabbit characters might not have. They've got big curly hair, which I chose because I have that exact hairstyle. I gave them little fangs just because I like the look of fangs and saber teeth, and I gave them a big fluffy tail to really complete the cute and fluffy look. These aspects add to the design and make my fursona more to my taste. Now it's time for my favorite part. It's time for colors. Coming up with colors can be done in several ways. Maybe you want to match a certain theme, like fruit or a season. Maybe you want to look at pre-made color palettes, or maybe you just want to use your favorite colors. It's entirely up to you. For me, my fursona is made up of my favorite color combination: pink, yellow, and turquoise, taken to a pastel level. A good tip is looking at color palettes, even if you already know what colors you want. Color palettes can give you an idea of what shades of colors might look good together and complement one another. Of course, you can make up your own color palette, but inspiration from other palettes can really help move the process along. Once you know their species, know their features, and know their colors, you can move on to your last step. You see, colors aren't all that matters in a design. Now, you can have a solid color fursona if you want. If that speaks to you, that is totally okay. Or you can do what many furries do and get a bit more complex. When it comes to markings, they can really set your character apart. You can decide to use markings that your Fursona species have in real life, like stripes on a tiger or throat markings on a pine marten. Or you can use markings according to a theme, such as yellow spots on a strawberry themed character or stars on a night themed character. You can even use markings to display your Fursona's personality. For example, freckles and spots can make a character seem bubbly and friendly, or sharp stripes can make your character seem dangerous and cool. For my Fursona, and for most of my characters in general, I like to use my favorite design trends. And if you don't know what your favorite design trends are, take some time to look at different designs in the furry fandom. You'll most likely come to find that there are certain color combinations, markings, and general design ideas that appeal to you more than others. But for my best and most important piece of advice, make a design that you like. And if you're an artist, a design that you like to draw. Nothing is as important as you enjoying your Fursona. Now, I'm going to give you some other things to consider and be wary of when designing your Fursona. Complex markings are all good and well, but if you plan to make art of your Fursona, you need to make sure that you can actually, well, draw the design. Fursonas with complex gradients, lots of stripes, or lots of spots might be challenging to draw. That said, that depends on your own skills as an artist. There's been plenty of times where I've designed a character only to find I can't actually draw them in different angles or poses due to their markings. In a similar vein, your final step in designing a Fursona is thinking of fursuit compatibility. Now, if you have no desire for a fursuit, then this step doesn't really matter. But if you think you might want a fursuit in the future, then this is a huge step in designing your Fursona. Not all designs are fursuit friendly. Remember, fursuits are usually hand sewn and fabric colors are limited. So when you're designing your Fursona, you might want to keep their design within the possible realm of fursuits. Further than that, you may want to keep in mind that while there are thousands of makers who are incredibly talented, it can push the boundaries of fursuit making. The price of your fursuit will be affected by the design of your Fursona. Factors such as the number of fur colors, the complexity of markings, and whether or not those markings can be hand sewn or need to be airbrushed, and additions of wigs or wings and things of that nature, can contribute to an increase in price. Now, when I designed my Fursona, I had no clue I'd want a fursuit in the future. Their freckle markings, their gradient, and their curly hair are all going to up the price of their suit when the time comes. However, this is something that I'm okay with because I don't want to change anything about their design. You may feel that way too, or you may want to opt for a design that is more fursuit friendly and therefore cost effective. Overall, the most important part of your Fursona is that you love and connect with them. They can be as simple or as complex as you want, with natural or wacky colors and any species you can think of. And while I outline some tips and some things to consider, you can ignore all of them if it makes you happy. That's what a Fursona is all about, making you happy. So have fun, make those Fursonas, make sure to like and subscribe for more furry content from me, and stay furry, friends!